On. Paxton brings this up in the chat room. Baylor having to play on the TCU field for the bowl game. That is not fun, I'm sure, for Baylor fans and or the football team. Glad to be a part of a bowl game, but this surely was not what you ordered back with what you had and what you thought you were when the season began back in September. That's tough. That's and I saw it. I don't know what this is. There's an argument about, or there was concern or some confusion about what side of the field they're going to sit on, the home side or the visiting side, but they're the home team, but they're going to sit on the other side. But yeah, that's not something that probably was. You heard Mac Rhodes' frustration earlier in the week.
Yeah, but again, win more games.
I
win
get
more
it.
games, or from the fan side. I mean, some of this is not completely on them just because it's not a very big alumni base, but when you have a chance to sell an allotment for anything, sell out that allotment, and then maybe that changes. Look, they were up against it with Oklahoma going to that Cheez-It Bowl. I mean, that there was no way that the Cheez-It Bowl wasn't going to play every single thing they could to get Oklahoma and Florida State in that game. That's what they wanted because that's two big brand names. There's nobody else that was available to them at that point of them picking that would have made the game as exciting, especially for a middle-of-the-rung bowl game that it is, as that would be, at least as far as selling it. Now, we don't know how the game's going to turn at all. Bowl games are so hard to put your finger on right now, but that's what they wanted, and so Baylor suffers because of that. Kansas was going to get a bit of a bump this year because their fan base was going to be thrilled to go to any bowl game they could have. Heck, I'm sure the Bahamas Bowl was like, hey, can we actually get Kansas here? Because maybe people will actually show up to the game as opposed to just giving the teams a free 4-day trip to the Bahamas, because that's essentially what they're doing. The stands are empty. So the Liberty Bowl kind of hurt there. And then I think everybody's pretty relieved that they didn't wind up in Phoenix. So what's the next best thing? This is where they're at. And it's certainly awkward and kind of strange that you're playing on your biggest rival's field for your bowl game, but at least you're in one. And maybe, like I said before, you can get used to maybe winning a game there once in a while.
Yeah, I mean, it's massively disappointing. I'd rather go just about anywhere else. I mean, send me to Shreveport, send me to Houston again, send me to anywhere. But, Fort Worth's great as a town, but to play at Amon Carter sucks. I mean, that's no two bones about it. I don't think anybody's fired up to play there except for maybe Army, Air Force, and that's something that you're going to have to deal with is that, that team on the other side is excited to be in a bowl game, and they know what a big deal would be to win 10 games, and they know what a big deal would be to beat a Big 12 team. So I think Army's going to be ready to play, and even if those things I just mentioned weren't out there, 10 wins, beating a Big 12 team, I mean, that's still, it's still a team that's going to be very disciplined and is going to want to, control the football and run it down your throat and keep it away from you so that you don't have many opportunities for Blake Shapen and company to do much of anything with it. So they're going to, have a great game plan, I'm sure, and be a really tough challenge for Dave Aranda, who's working a bit shorthanded with staff because of the couple moves made a couple weeks ago. So, he's also being more of the defensive coordinator than he typically would be during a week like this. You got somebody else coaching safeties now. You've got somebody else running special teams now. So, this is an important game. I don't think the location should take away from the importance of not only the challenge of who they're playing, but the flip side of what it would be like to lose this game and be 6-7 and lose, 4 straight to close the year. And, no shame in losing to Air Force per se, but they're not at a level where they should be losing to Air Force right now. I mean, just as a program, that would be a massive step back from last year. I mean, any ground that they gained kind of almost wiped out, quite frankly, if they were to finish 6-7, losing to Air Force at TCU Stadium. I mean, come on. I mean, there's no way to spin that positively in any way, shape, or form. This is, to me, in so many ways, there's a lot of throwaway bowl games, but I almost feel like this is a must-win for Baylor, and it's not, because they could lose this game, and not many people are going to think about it too much beyond, the final result. But I do feel like it is one for their offseason and just their kind of morale that they do need to win this game, and it stinks to play where you are, but that's just part of the deal. And next year, go win games and ensure that you're not sitting there at the back of the pack waiting for a phone call because you had to be thankful that somebody eventually gave you a call this time around because you you so walked it, you so limped into the finish of the season that, had you won, beat Texas or not dropped 3 straight the way that you did, you beat TCU. You're certainly not in the Armed Forces game. You're in a much better game than that, but you did. You lost 3 straight, and here you are. So nobody to blame but themselves, really.
Yeah, and I've been kind of racking my brain about how this game's going to go. I do think, on the surface you look at it, and Baylor has a weakness on defense of stopping the run all year. I mean, they didn't really do it, except for the fact that at least consistently. Consistently, like they didn't do that consistently, and this is all that Air Force does. I mean, they've had games where they didn't throw a pass at all, which I doubt will be this game. I think they'll probably sneak a couple in there because I'm pretty sure that Baylor's going to play everybody up and in the box and hell-bent for leather to stop the run. But I do think having Dave Aranda calling the defense for 2 weeks of practices, 15 total practices beforehand, will work out fine for them. I don't think their issue is going to be scheme or stopping or figuring it out because it's all they have to think about for the duration of the bowl season. I think it's just going to be the want to that they didn't have week to week throughout the season.
All right, Baylor allowed 137.6 yards per game on the ground, which nationally, according to NCAA.com, ranked number, where was that? 44th in the country. Air Force, how about this? They run the ball. They also are good against the run. They allowed 99.8 yards per game on the ground. Now, they'll face a team that likes to run the football too. And what Baylor has, depending on what, of course, they do, but that's kind of an interesting twist. By the way, Navy was like number 6 in the country. That's an interesting. Again, it was the style of play. Georgia was number 1. Other teams in the Big 12 ahead of Baylor against the run, Texas was 29th this year against the run. Heck, Texas State was 21st. Iowa State, 17th, had a hell of a defense this year. They couldn't do anything else, but they surely had a pretty